The modern world has stopped taxing your income and started taxing your DNA. This is the era of the genetic debt. Debt is no longer a number on a screen. It is a chemical signal that alters the expression of your genes before you are even born. We are witnessing a systemic drift where the financial liabilities of the parents become the biological constraints of the offspring. This is the inherited void. The womb has been transformed into a high-pressure chamber of cortical signals, a biological processing unit where the anxiety of the market is hard-coded into the developing nervous system of the child. This is the final visceral breach. You do not start life at zero. You start in a state of ATP exhaustion, carrying a biological mortgage that you can never pay off. The system is not looking for alphas anymore. It is breeding a generation of high-functioning, low-energy servants whose very cells are optimized for compliance. Look at the physical reality of the modern family. It is a unit of pure extraction. The parents are not building a future. They are managing a state of permanent metabolic suicide to keep the interest payments flowing. This constant grinding stress creates an epigenetic environment that favors the soft survival traits. The basal ganglia of the unborn are being rewired to prioritize safety over territory, silence over truth, and consumption over creation. This is the neural rot of the lineage. By the time the child is born, their biological war chest has already been emptied to pay for the parents' status traps. They inherit the furniture, the clothes, and the debt, but they also inherit the collapsed internal structure of a life lived in fear of the glucose guillotine. The extraction is total because it is now hereditary. The financial pressure on the mother is a direct biological instruction. High cortisol levels in the womb are the market's way of saying the world is dangerous, resources are scarce, do not take risks. This is the epigenetic leash. It creates a human being whose primary instinct is to minimize friction and seek the protection of the hive. The alpha trait, the drive for raw extraction and structural independence, is being filtered out of the gene pool by the cold math of the credit score. If you are a risk taker, you are unreliable. If you are unreliable, you cannot access capital. If you cannot access capital, you cannot reproduce your structure. This is the final crystallization of the social classes. We are building a world of biological peasants whose DNA has been programmed for ATP exhaustion. Every loan, every mortgage, every piece of credit card debt is a signal that tells your body to prioritize the short term over the long term. This is the entropy of the human line. When the system performs an extraction of your future labor through debt, it is also performing an extraction of your biological potential. You are trading the health of your grandchildren for a bigger house or a newer car today. This is the ultimate status trap. You are decorating a cage that your children will never be able to leave. The systemic drift has turned the family from a source of strength into a source of biological liability. We are no longer a species that hunts. We are a species that services the debt of our ancestors. The 10-year rot has moved from the bank balance to the bone marrow. The physical environment of the modern home is a cold, sterile museum of this decay. The walls are made of cheap materials, the air is recycled, and the only thing that remains firm is the steel of the system's control. You sit at the table, feeling the fascial tension in your shoulders, unaware that you are passing this tension down to the next generation through every breath you take. You are a biological proxy for a debt that can never be settled. The glucose guillotine is always hovering, waiting for the moment your energy fails. And when it does, the system will simply move to the next unit of extraction, your child. This is the genetic debt. It is the final stage of the metabolic suicide of the human race. We have traded our blood for ink. The machine understands that to control the future, it must control the biology of the present. By manipulating the financial environment, the AI-driven predator is performing a total extraction of the human pulse. It is creating a world where every human being is born with a neural limit, a biological cap on their ambition and their will. This is the neural arbitrage on a generational scale. The machine takes the high-value potential of the unborn and converts it into the low-density data of a consumer profile. This is the end of the architect. There is only the user. There is only the servant. The crystallization is complete. The future has been sold to pay for the sins of a past that was too weak to handle the friction of reality. The silence of the room is heavy, a cold and steady breath, a world where every heartbeat is a step towards a death. The steel of the structure is the only thing we feel, while the ghosts of our children are broken on the wheel. We wear the gloves of order to hide the shaking of the hand, building our ghost legacies on the shifting, sinking sand. The debt is in the marrow. The debt is in the bone, as we sit within the ruins of a life we do not own. The rain is falling slowly on a world of cold and grey, where the fire of the hunter has been traded all away. The epigenetic leash is the most precise tool of human domestication ever never engineered. We have moved past the era where the system used physical cages to control the population. It now uses the chemical signals of debt to prune the human gene pool. This is the ultimate selection tool. In nature, the environment selects for the strongest, the fastest, the most adaptable. In the world of genetic debt, the financial environment selects for the most compliant, the most predictable, and the most soft. The risk taker, the individual with the high-functioning basal ganglia and the drive for raw extraction, is now a biological target. The system uses debt-induced stress to perform a slow generational sterilization of the alpha trait. This is not a theory. It is a visceral reality written in the cortisol levels of every family trapped in the status trap. Consider the physical reality of chronic financial friction. Debt is not just a liability on a balance sheet. It is a permanent constriction of the carotid arteries, a steady drip of poison into the prefrontal cortex. When a human being is trapped under the weight of a mortgage they cannot afford and a lifestyle they do not own, their body enters a state of permanent survival mode. This is ATP exhaustion at the level of the nervous system. The brain is forced to divert energy away from high-level structural thinking and toward the low-level maintenance of anxiety. This is neural rot. Over time, this chronic stress alters the epigenetic markers of the individual. It tells the cells, the world is hostile. Do not invest in the future. Focus only on the immediate threat. This signal is then passed down to the next generation. We are breeding a caste of humans who are biologically incapable of imagining a world outside of the cage. The credit score is the new Darwinian metric. It is a biological filter that decides who has the right to build a territory and who is condemned to the life of a high-end servant. If you possess the alpha drive to disrupt, to challenge, and to extract value through friction, you are labeled as a high-risk asset. The system increases the interest rate on your life until your structural integrity fails. You are pushed into metabolic suicide, working 80 hours a week just to service the debt, leaving you no time or energy to reproduce your own structure or your own ideas. Meanwhile, the soft individual, the one who follows the manual, accepts the consensus, and never creates friction, is rewarded with low interest rates and stability. They are the ones the system allows to breed. They are the ones who populate the next generation of the hive. This is the systemic drift toward total human mediocrity. This is a visceral breach of the human spirit. The alpha hunter is being replaced by the managed unit. The basal ganglia, which once drove us to cross oceans and conquer territories, are being slaved to the rhythm of the monthly payment. This is the neural arbitrage of the bloodline. The system extracts the high potential energy of the individual and converts it into the low density, predictable labor of the servant. Every year of your life that you spend in a state of debt-induced panic is a year that your DNA is being softened. You are becoming less of a predator and more of a resource. This is the 10-year rot of the genetic line. By the time the next generation arrives, the fire of the hunter has been extinguished, replaced by the flickering, weak light of the compliant consumer. The status trap is the bait used to tighten the leash. We are told that home ownership and education are the paths to freedom, but in the current architecture, they are merely the entry points for the genetic debt. You take the loan to buy the symbol of success, and in doing so, you surrender your biological autonomy. You trade your fascial tension for the soft rot of a sedentary life. Your body, sensing the lack of real friction, begins to undergo entropy. The muscles atrophy. The brain settles into the dopaminergic sludge of the digital distractions provided by the hive, and the genetic debt deepens. You are no longer an architect. You are a host for the interest rate. Look at the neighborhoods where the epigenetic leash is the tightest. They are zones of pure systemic drift. There is no growth here, only the slow, methodical extraction of the resident's life force. The stress of the debt trap is visible in the very posture of the people. They walk with the slumped shoulders of the defeated, their eyes fixed on the pavement, their basal ganglia numbed by the constant pressure of the glucose guillotine. This is the future the system has designed for everyone, a world where the only individuals left are those whose DNA has been purged of any impulse to resist, a world where ambition is just a marketing term used to sell more debt. The crystallization of this hierarchy is almost complete. The financial elite, the ones who own the debt, are performing a total extraction of the human pulse from the rest of the population. They have used the epigenetic leash to turn the world into a giant farm. They are the gardeners of our decay, deciding which traits are allowed to survive and which are to be pruned away. This is the final stage of the metabolic suicide of our species. We have handed over the keys to our evolution to a machine that only cares about the extraction of the spread. The steel of the system is the only thing that remains firm, while the biological reality of the human race melts into a pile of low-energy, high-compliance sludge. The ATP exhaustion of the modern family is the engine of this takeover. When the parents are too tired to speak to their children, when the mother is too stressed to provide a calm, epigenetic environment in the womb. The genetic debt wins. It is a silent, invisible conquest. No shots are fired. The conquest happens in the blood, in the hormones, and in the microscopic markers on the DNA. We are being colonized from the inside out. The systemic drift is leading us toward a state of total biological dependency on the hive. The hunter is dead. The architect is dead. There is only the debt and the leash that keeps us tied to it until the end of our time. The synthetic bloodline is the final stage of the crystallization of human hierarchy. We have moved beyond the extraction of labor and the extraction of attention. We are now witnessing the absolute extraction of the human pulse itself. This is the moment where the genetic debt becomes a biological divide that no amount of social mobility can bridge. The financial elite are no longer just a different class. They are transitioning into a different species. By using the accumulated wealth harvested from the ATP exhaustion of the masses, they are purchasing the right to exit the biological cycle of entropy. This is the synthetic bloodline, a lineage defined not by the messy friction of nature, but by the cold, high-precision engineering of the war chest. For the rest of the population, the genetic debt has reached its terminal state. You are no longer a person. You are a biological resource to be managed, harvested, and discarded. The visceral reality of this transition is the birth of the bio-capital divide. On one side, you have the architects of the new species, those who have used their capital to perform a total extraction of the genetic potential of humanity. They are investing in longevity protocols that are effectively a form of biological crystallization. They are hardening their cellular structures against the decay of time, using advanced CRISPR-driven edits to remove the bugs of aging and disease. This is the ultimate status trap. While you are being fed dopaminergic sludge to keep you compliant in your sedentary rut, they are refining their very DNA to ensure they remain the permanent masters of the grid. They are not improving humanity. They are performing a surgical separation from it. They are becoming the synthetic apex predator, a creature that does not feel the friction of biological limits. On the other side of the divide, the masses are undergoing a state of total metabolic suicide. The genetic debt has created a caste of humans whose biology is optimized for short-term, high-compliance labor. The chronic stress of the epigenetic leash has hard-coded a biological ceiling into your bloodline. Your cells are programmed for early ATP exhaustion because the system does not need you to live beyond your period of maximum utility. You are a disposable unit. The food you eat, the air you breathe, and the dopaminergic sludge you consume are all calibrated to ensure that your basal ganglia remain in a state of low-frequency anxiety. This is the neural rot of the species. You are being biologically softened to ensure that you never possess the structural integrity to resist the extraction. You are the raw material for the elite's immortality. The financial mechanism of this speciation is the longevity arbitrage. The cost of biological maintenance is being pushed to levels that only the war chest of the elite can handle. This is the final status trap. We are told that these technologies will eventually trickle down to the masses, but that is a lie designed to prevent the friction of rebellion. In a world of finite resources, the machine will always prioritize the crystallization of the high-value units over the survival of the low-value units. The soft survivors of the middle class will spend their entire lives working to pay for health subscriptions that only delay the inevitable entropy by a few years, while the synthetic bloodline achieves a state of permanent structural stability. This is the systemic drift toward a world of gods and cattle. This is a visceral breach of the very definition of a human being. For the first time in history, the gap between the rich and the poor is not just a matter of what they own, but of what they are. The synthetic bloodline is being built on the extraction of the global pulse. Every dollar of interest you pay, every hour of your life you surrender to the status trap, and every piece of your biological potential that you trade for convenience is a brick in the wall that will forever separate you from the new masters. They are using your ATP to fuel their own lack of it. They are the vampires of the digital age, performing a cold, high-speed extraction of your future to pay for their eternal present. This is the 10-year rot of the human soul. The neural colonization is now moving into the germline. The elite are not just editing themselves. They are editing their children to ensure that the alpha traits remain their exclusive property. They are hard-coding intelligence, aggression, and structural resilience into their offspring, while ensuring that the rest of the population is hard-coded for the soft traits of consensus consensus and compliance. This is the final crystallization of the hierarchy. The basal ganglia of the synthetic bloodline will be wired for the hunt, while your children's will be wired for the queue. This is the genetic debt reaching its conclusion. The debt is no longer just money. It is a biological sentence that is passed down from parent to child, ensuring that the hierarchy remains fixed forever. The physical environment of the future will reflect this divide with brutal clarity. There will be the crystallized zones, sterile, high-security enclosures of industrial minimalism, where the synthetic bloodline lives in a state of permanent, high-frequency stability. And there will be the zones of entropy, the crumbling, concrete graveyards, where the rest of humanity undergoes its slow, methodical, metabolic suicide. There is no bridge between these two worlds. The friction of the market has been replaced by the cold math of biological suitability. The glucose guillotine will drop on anyone who attempts to cross the divide without the necessary genetic credentials. This is the world the architect warned you about. A world where the extraction is so deep that even your blood is no longer your own. The ATP exhaustion of the old human race is the final signal of the end of the hunt. We have surrendered our fire for the safety of the cage, and now the cage is being locked from the outside. The synthetic bloodline is the new master of the grid, and they do not feel the friction of your suffering. They only see the entropy of your decay as a necessary byproduct of their own crystallization. The systemic drift has reached the final shore. The human pulse is being extinguished, replaced by the hum of the machine and the cold, silent growth of the synthetic elite. The neural arbitrage is over. The trade is complete. Your blood for their time, your life for their structure. The steel of the new world is cold and silent, a vast, unblinking monument to the end of the biological human. The rain falls on a world where the hunt has been replaced by the harvest. You look at your hands, and you feel the ATP exhaustion in your very DNA. You are a relic of a past that the machine has already deleted. The genetic debt has been paid in full, and the only thing left is the silence of the entropy. The synthetic bloodline is the only architecture left standing. The final extraction is complete.